Okay, it's game time. Hasta luego.
What up, it's Shankster94, and welcome to my weapon review of Resident Evil Outbreak and Resident Evil Outbreak File Number 2. Now this is a brand new weapon review that I have received countless requests to do so over the last few years. And the reason I held it off until this point was simply because this game differs from the rest of the series in one dramatic way. There's an insane amount of melee weapons in this game that outnumber the firearms by quite a bit. So the majority of this review is going to feature a lot of non-fire items. Now here's the reason I decided to merge these two games into one review. Outbreak File 2 is based on the exact same engine as its predecessor. So all characters, animations, and weapons behave 100% in sync, with only minor differences such as exclusive weapons in each game and the result of a critical impact on a zombie. So throughout this review you will see me switch between both games constantly, primarily when I'm testing the weapon out. Enemy testing will be done differently, however. Almost all melee weapons will be tested in the first game since I have Infinity Mode unlocked, so they won't become useless before the enemy is dead. To equalize the review, most of the firearms will be used in the second game. Don't worry about damage rates between games. I took the liberty of testing it out and they both do the same damage. And one more thing, the characters in this game have all the basic animations for the weapons, except for handgun aiming. Alright, so without further ado, let's begin possibly my most complex weapon review up to date. So normally in my weapon reviews I start with the knives, throwing weapons, and other melee weapons, but since more than half of the weapons in this game are melee, I'm going to divide them into subcategories. These include melee moves, knives, spraying weapons, throwing weapons, and swinging or prodding weapons. There's also, of course, character-only weapons. For example, David's monkey wrenches and Alyssa's stun gun in File 2. Now originally I was going to start the review with melee moves, or no weapon basically. If you haven't seen my melee move review of these games, every character has the same basic move, a standard shoulder tackle. Although in File 2, this move is swapped with a different move for a couple of characters. These moves are primarily defensive, and I really don't think you can kill an enemy with a regular tackle. And all the other moves may do damage, but it would take an absurd amount of hits, and it would just be better if you quickly stun the enemy with one hit and then run past them. If you really have the time to stick around and try to kill an enemy with a standard move like that, you got way too much time on your hands. Alright, so I will not be including the melee moves in this weapon review. If you want to see what they look like at least, you can check out my melee move review. Alright, one last thing before I get with this review. I'm going to try to test most of the weapons on normal difficulty, but there are some weapons which I will inevitably have to go to a harder difficulty in order to review properly. So this review is not going to be bound by difficulty as much as my previous reviews, just to let you know. No weapon will be reviewed in easy mode. So it's going to be only normal mode, hard mode, and possibly very hard mode in this review. Alright, let's start this godforsaken review already. So the first melee weapon subcategory I'm going to start with are the knives. And the first one is the folding knife. A small knife which could be folded. Alright, let's test it out. Alright, so this is the smallest knife in this game, and it is the weakest. So, it is really a last resort weapon. If you run out of ammo completely, since some characters have melee moves of their own, you could always use a tackle just to escape. I don't know if it's worth your health to try to defeat an enemy with this. But anyway, if you're David, of course, you could use that 3-hit combo in Outbreak 1 and the 4-hit combo in Outbreak 2. It might save you. I don't know. Alright, well, making everything I just said irrelevant, let's test the folding knife on a zombie. Okay, so that took 19 slashes to take down a zombie with the folding knife and decisions in normal mode. Alright, before we continue, I need to say that the damage rates in this game are far too complex for me to comprehend. So, the damage isn't going to be very specific in this review either, even though I'm testing it in just normal mode as much as I can. I learned that the damage rates do not differ between the games or the levels, necessarily. It's only between difficulties and enemies. Oh shit. Here, let me pause. The point is, a zombie, their health points don't increase or decrease over the course of the level you're playing on. They only differ when you change the difficulty. So easy mode, of course, will have the least amount of health points, and very hard mode will have the most amount of health points. I'm going to do something I've never done in a review before. I'm going to provide a link to a certain FAQ in the description of all the parts to this review, so you could see the actual damage statistics that someone actually took the time to do. And he gives a lot of details, so I will provide you guys with that if you want to know the true statistics of each weapon. Because once again, this is more of a weapon showcase than a weapon review. A review might be a misleading title for all these videos I've been making, but there's really no other word that I could use without it sounding cheesy or retarded. Once again, I speak too much, and you probably slapped the dislike by now, but I needed to tell you guys that so I don't get spammed with, hey, you know, your damage rates are wrong, you know. Just shut up, I'm just looking at the weapons, give me a break. Alright, that is it for the folding knife, weak-ass weapon. Alright, now for the next knife. The butcher knife. A regular household kitchen knife. Alright. Let's test it out. Alright, so the butcher knife is obviously bigger than the folding knife, so it has a longer range, and I do know for a fact that it's also stronger than the folding knife. However, it is not the strongest knife in the game. We'll be getting to that. But first, let's test the butcher knife on a zombie. Alright, so 14 slashes with the butcher knife to take down a zombie. So yeah, obviously stronger than the folding knife. Now, one more thing I should disclose. I did so many tests before finally recording this thing, and I found out that the damage is not constant all the time. It could vary. It's taken me as little as 12 slashes before, and as much as 16. So, there might be a variation of where you hit the enemy. If I hit them in the head, compared to hitting them in the leg, stuff like that. So, yeah, I would just use my formula that I've been using in all my weapon reviews lately. Whatever amount of hits or shots it takes to defeat the enemy that I tested the weapon on, you add and subtract 5 from that initial number, and that range should spread across the entire game, regardless of difficulty, as long as it's that enemy. So yeah, you could follow that, or you could just look at the damage statistics chart that I'm going to provide in the description. So yeah, around 14 slashes with a butcher knife for a zombie. Alright, oh, one thing I should also mention, David's 4-hit combo in Outbreak File 2 I learned that the 4th slash does more damage than the other 3 slashes. And I actually did another test to where I made sure to hit the enemy with only that 4th slash, and it cut the damage in half. So yeah, that 4th attack is pretty powerful, and you could use it to your advantage. And it's hilarious too, because the zombies go flying backward. Alright, that is it for the butcher knife. Alright, now for the last knife. The survival knife. An army fighting knife. They're pretty lazy with the descriptions, but that's okay. Alright, let's test it out. Alright, so the survival knife is slightly smaller than the butcher knife, so it probably has a shorter range, but it is the most powerful knife out of all the knives. So let's just find out how much more powerful it is by testing it on a zombie. Alright, so the survival knife took 10 slashes to take down a zombie in normal mode. So yep, that is the most powerful knife in the game. Also, I should mention that certain weapons in this game are actually more powerful against certain enemies. For example, the damage of the folding knife increases by 5 times if you use it on the Thanatos R, which is just insane, but hey, I didn't make the game. Alright, so that is it for the survival knife, as well as all knives. Alright, now for the next weapon subcategory. The sprays. And the first one is the pesticide spray. An aerosol spray, it contains pesticide. Alright? Let's test it out. Alright, so the pesticide spray is not an ideal weapon for zombies particularly. It's actually better suited for whatever those cockroach-looking things are in the Outbreak scenario, which only appear in hard mode and very hard mode. I'm just gonna test it on a cockroach, I guess. Alright, so it took about 13 sprays to defeat one of those things with the pesticide spray. I guess it's not primarily used as a killing weapon because, I mean, it killed it, of course, and I did test it on a zombie before recording, and no, I don't think it does anything to a zombie. I highly doubt you can kill a zombie with a pesticide spray. It only stuns them and pushes them back a bit, that's it. But it is very useful against these cockroach things. Not necessarily to kill them, but it puts them on their back instantly. So it could be very handy in this part of the level. Especially in very hard mode, Jesus Christ. Those things are a pain in the ass. As you can see, I'm danger level now. I barely got away with that test, so I hope you guys can appreciate what I'm going through in order to give you guys an entertaining review. Alright, that is it for the pesticide spray. Good lord. Alright, now for the next and last spraying weapon. Now check this out. One cool thing about Outbreak and Outbreak File 2 is that David here, in his tool set, which is unique to him only, he has this item called vinyl tape, and with it, he can create much more powerful melee weapons by combining two specific melee weapons together. So here's one of them, which is a spraying weapon. Combine the pesticide spray with the lighter, and you get this. Flame spray. A handmade flamethrower, you could say. Alright. So yeah, in order to get this with another character, you obviously have to have David on your team. And then give him the items, and he will create it automatically. Alright, let's test the flame spray out. Alright, so it will obviously be much more powerful than the regular pesticide spray, and will probably actually do damage to zombies this time. So I'm gonna resort back to zombies for the flame spray. Let's see how many sprays of flame it will take to defeat a standard zombie in normal mode. Alright, so 4 sprays of the flame spray to take down a standard zombie in normal mode. So it is much, much, much more powerful than the regular pesticide spray, because the pesticide spray, when I tested it off recording, I went up to at least 30 sprays, and the zombie didn't even fall down. So, flame spray is a huge improvement over the pesticide spray, and if you have David on your team, then I suggest you find a lighter and a pesticide spray, and you'll have a badass weapon. Now, I know I'm in infinity mode, so I have unlimited sprays, obviously. When you're not in infinity mode, I'm not quite sure how many sprays you have. I think it's however many sprays you had in the pesticide bottle before you combined it with the lighter. Capacity is not something that I'm covering very well, obviously, in this review. Although the pesticide spray is the only weapon, really, that actually states the numerical quantity of uses it has. All the other melee weapons, they do have a limited number of uses, but it won't show it. It will show through degrading when you use the weapon excessively. But anyway, that is it for the flame spray, as well as all spraying weapons. And one more thing I want to mention, the first aid spray can be equipped and sprayed just like the pesticide spray. Although it doesn't do anything against enemies, I think it's so you could heal your teammates without going through the trouble of giving them the first aid spray first. You could just spray them right then and there. Alright, here's a weapon that's worth covering now. Alyssa's stun gun. An electrical shock device. Can be charged with batteries. So yeah, the desperate times scenario is the only scenario with batteries available. So, if you run out of charge in any other scenario, you might as well throw this thing away. You can only get this in Outbreak File 2. It's Alyssa's extra item. So it can be given to any character in the game, as long as you have her on the team. Alright, so let's test the stun gun out. Alright, so obviously nothing happens if I don't have an enemy to test it on. As you can see, I'm still at 8 quantity, so it doesn't use anything as long as nothing's hit. As soon as it hits a target, the quantity will start to diminish. Alright, so let's test the stun gun on a zombie. Alright, so it took 7 shocks of the stun gun to defeat a zombie in normal mode. The way I was doing it isn't normally the way you should do it. If you just hold it down, it will shock them multiple times. So I wonder if the damage would be different if I did it that way instead. I'm gonna find out real quick. Alright, so it appears that does not make a difference. It's just better if you hold the button, it defeats them faster. So, it's basically an entire stun gun's worth to defeat a standard zombie in normal mode. So yeah, this is more of a defense weapon it seems, as most melee weapons are. Alright, that is it for the stun gun.